Jai, Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda,
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta
Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So we're recounting some of the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from his childhood and from his youth. Here is the first verse from the 17th chapter. Bande Swaira Bhute Ham Tam Chaitanyam Yat Prasadata Yavana Sumana Yante Krishnanam Prajalpakam. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even unclean Yavanas become, and Prabhupada in the purport talks about how the Krishna consciousness movement is spread in the Western world, where there are all unclean Yavanas. But he said how they're becoming devotees in a short time. Prabhupada said within a matter of 4 or 5 years, they're completely transformed. And he said, the smarter brahmanas, they cannot understand how anybody can become in the same lifetime, how they can be changed. The smarter brahmanas claim that you have to take birth again and become, you have to be born in a brahmana family. They claim that is necessary in order to become devotee, in order to become actually situated in the transcendental platform. Just like in the line of Shankaracharya, if you want to take sannyas, you must be born in a brahmana family. And without that birth, then you cannot become a sannyas. So Srila Prabhupada argues that anybody can become brahmana. And of course Sanatana Goswami quoted from the Shastras, just as bell metal is transformed into gold by an alchemical process, in the same way, when someone is initiated and trained by a bona fide spiritual master, then they can become brahmanas. So Lord Chaitanya he practiced this. He didn't just preach this, but he applied this in his own lifetime. He taught that anyone can become a brahmana. And of course, he recognized people like Haridas Thakur as being greater than any of these smarter brahmanas. And he gave Haridas Thakur the glorious position of Nam Acharya. Now, one of the events which took place during the youth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was when he confronted Keshav Kashmiri. Keshava Kashmiri was from a very high Brahmana family, and he was very well read in Shastra, and he was a very great scholar. He was such a great scholar that he traveled all around Bharatvarsh debating with any Pandits, and no one could defeat him. So he had a big following, and he came to Navadvip, and he came with an entourage. He came riding on an elephant with many people following him, all singing, praising the glories of Keshav Kashmiri, who had been given the title Digvijay. So Nimai Pandit was just a young boy, teenager. He opened his school at the age of 11 and began teaching grammar. So when you study Sanskrit, the first thing you have to learn is grammar. So because Nimai Pandit was teaching grammar, it was considered that he's just a neophyte in teaching, because he's teaching the beginners, he's teaching the grammar. And Keshav Kashmiri, he was great Pandit. He was teaching, he was speaking so much elevated topics, and he knew all the Shastras. Of course, he had been blessed by Mother Saraswati. He had all the blessings from the goddess Saraswati. So when he came to Navadvip and he met with Nimai Pandit, then he was certainly proud, because he defeated so many people and he had so much knowledge. So he had developed a lot of pride in himself. And when he met with Nimai Pandit, he began to ridicule him and say, you know, you're just a boy, you're just a beginner in this field. What do you know? You don't know. And Nimai Pandit was very humble. He took a humble position. He did not try to argue. He said, yes, I'm just a child compared to you. You're a great Pandit, you're a great scholar. I don't know anything. I'm just a neophyte. And in this way, Keshav Kashmiri was proclaiming his own glorious position over Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Nimai Pandit spoke. He wants to encourage Keshava Kashmiri. And he said to him, please bless us if you could recite some poetry in the praise of Mother Ganga. That will be very wonderful for our benefit. So he requested this Keshava Kashmiri to compose some poems. And Keshav Kashmiri had that talent that without any preparation, he could compose verses of poetry. Prabhupada had one disciple. One of his very first disciples was Acharya Prabhaka. He came from Mathura over there. And he had that skill. He could compose poetry spontaneously. You know, if we have to write a poem, average person, it takes a lot of thought and a lot of preparation to compose one verse. But Keshava Kashmiri could do it without any trouble. And he began to recite verses. And it is said he recited 100 verses, all in praise of Mother Ganga. So Nimai Pandit was listening with the other students. They were listening to the poetry. And after Keshava Kashmiri finished, and he recited the poems, the verses very quickly. He said, like the wind almost, he was reciting. So Nimai Pandit said, oh, your poetry is so wonderful and it's so elevated. He said, I think you're the only one who can understand it. So, that was a little bit of a rebuke to Keshava Kashmiri, that your poetry is so wonderful, nobody can understand it, only you. So what is the good? What is the good of a poem if you're the only one who can understand it? So anyway, Nimai Pandit was rebuking Keshava Kashmiri like this. And then Nimai said to Keshava Kashmiri that, why don't you tell us, explain this one verse to us? There's this one verse, I want you to explain to me about the ornaments and about the faults which are there in the verse. So Keshava Kashmiri, he didn't like this. He said, my poetry, there are no faults. Now actually, when people write, there may be faults. And even in great poetry, written by great people like Kalidas, Chandidas, they write poetry, and there can be faults in it. But because it's glorifying the Supreme Lord, it's considered perfect. Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, when Narada Muni was discussing with Vyasadeva, he told him, Tadva Vishako Janatagavit Lavo Yasmin Priti Slokam Abhalyavadati Namani Anantascha Mishram Nikitaniya Shrinvanti Kayanti Grinanti Sadava. Right? That Narada Muni says that those words which are glorifying the Supreme Lord, that even though they may be imperfectly composed, in other words, there may be some faults in the grammar here and there, but because they're glorifying the Supreme Lord, they are perfect in themselves. There's no fault. And such words are heard, sung, and accepted by those who are thoroughly honest. That is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Mahaprabhu, when he asked Keshava Kashmiri to explain about the faults, he was not ridiculing, but he just wanted to know. He wanted he wanted this Keshav Kashmiri to explain the verse. It's always better to have something explained by the author rather than by other people. Just like Prabhupada tells about how there was a book written about, it was about Shah Jahan. It was about Shah Jahan. But the book was all about Aurangzeb and all the atrocities which Aurangzeb had committed. All the different atrocities. So people would read the book and they would wonder, why is it called Shah Jahan? It's all about Shah Jahan. There's not much about Shah Jahan, it's all about Aurangzeb. But the author explained that actually it's about Shah Jahan, because Shah Jahan was in the prison. And he'd been put in the prison by his son, Aurangzeb. And he's getting the news about all the atrocities which Aurangzeb had performed. And so naturally, the father would feel very bad. So the book was called Shah Jahan. And it was describing how the father is feeling bad because of all the misdeeds of the son. So the man who wrote the book, he could explain. Because he wrote the book, so he knew the purpose behind the book. The same way, people who comment on Shastra, Srila Vyasadeva wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. He compiled Vedanta Sutra. He wrote Vedanta Sutra. And so many people try to understand Vedanta Sutra. But if you want to understand Vedanta Sutra, you should understand it from the author, Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva's commentary on Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. You read the Srimad Bhagavatam and you'll understand Vedanta Sutra. So the same way Lord Chaitanya was requesting Keshava Kashmiri, explain your poetry. Tell me this verse. And Keshava Kashmiri said, which verse do you want? And Lord Chaitanya quoted a verse. And Keshava Kashmiri is surprised that, how is it you could remember this verse? I recited so many verses. How is it you could remember even one of the verses? But Lord Chaitanya said to him, he said, well, by the grace of the Lord, you have the ability to recite poetry. By the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have the ability to remember some of the verses. Right? So that is called Shruti Dara. Shruti Dara. That you hear and you can remember. It would be nice to have that ability. Right? Before Kali Yuga, everybody had that ability. Kali Yuga, with the beginning of Kali Yuga, we lost it. Right? We become influenced by the age of Kali. But before Kali Yuga, people could hear and remember. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had that ability. And he quoted the verse. And he said, tell me what are the faults? Explain the faults and the ornaments. And Keshava Kashmiri, he could not admit that that there are faults in the verse. He could not admit it. But then Nimai Pandit took over and he began to explain all of the faults, one after another. For example, at one point, he spoke about Lord Shiva's wife who has a husband. So it was contradiction. Lord Shiva's wife who has a husband. It repeated the same thing. It was a fault. This was one thing which there were other faults. And Nimai Pandit he pointed out each and every fault in the verse. And then he also pointed out the ornaments, the good qualities in the verse. That there were many very nice metaphors and figures of speech used in the one verse. So Nimai Pandit was showing the faults and also praising. And Keshava Kashmiri was astounded. He could not imagine how is it this young boy he could not have studied very much. How is it he could find out all the faults? Because studying Sanskrit grammar takes 12 years to study Sanskrit grammar. Nimai Pandit, he'd opened his school, he was only 11. So how many years could he study? He just began with his teaching. And Keshava Kashmiri is so much senior in age, in studies, and he's been defeated by this young boy. So he wondered what happened. He said, I can only understand Mother Saraswati is speaking through you, that I must have offended Mother Saraswati myself. And now she is speaking through you to tell you all my faults. So that, look, the boys who were with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his students, they were laughing to hear the debate because they saw that Nimai Pandit had defeated this Keshav Kashmiri. So the boys were laughing, they were feeling good that our teacher won. We have a good teacher. But Nimai Pandit told them, no, don't laugh. It's not funny. He's a learned scholar. He had recited so many verses. All right, he made some mistakes, but still, he's a very learned scholar. So Lord Chaitanya taught us to give respect to people, even when they're presenting other ideas, like Prakashananda Saraswati. Lord Chaitanya was very respectful in dealing with them. So similarly with Keshava Kashmiri, Lord Chaitanya as a young boy was very respectful. And he told Keshava Kashmiri, he said, go home, go take rest, come back tomorrow. So Keshava Kashmiri retired, and that night he prayed to Mother Saraswati, and he was asking her, did I offend you? Did I commit some offense against you that I'm no longer able to defeat even a young boy? And Mother Saraswati explained to him that this young boy, he is my Lord and Master. He is not any ordinary child. So you should not feel bad that you have met the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. And you should go and you should surrender to Him, because He is my Lord and Master. So Keshava Kashmiri got this instruction, and the next morning he came to Nimai Pandit and he took shelter at the lotus feet of Nimai Pandit. And he became a Vaishnava. Later on, he was initiated in the Nimbarka Sampradaya. And he also wrote a commentary. He wrote his commentary. On the commentary, the Nimbarka Sampradaya, they have a commentary on Vedanta. And this Keshava Kashmiri, he also wrote a commentary on the Nimbarka commentary. So he became a very good devotee. Nimbarka Sampradaya, they also worship Radha and Krishna. They recognize also the important position of Radharani and the mood of the gopis. So Keshava Kashmiri took initiation in that line. So that was one of Mahaprabhu's pastimes as a young boy. And another very important pastime of Mahaprabhu was his encounter with the Chankasi. The Chankasi, the Chankasi, he's like the magistrate. He was a magistrate in Navadvip. And he was the guru of Nawab Hussain Shah. Nawab Hussain Shah was the emperor of Bengal. He ruled the whole of Bengal, meaning Bangladesh also. If you go to Ramakeli, you can see the ruins of the Nawab Hussain Shah. There's a big, huge place. There's several buildings there in Ramakeli. Even today, people come from America, they come to visit Ramakeli. Now we go to Ramakeli too. Now we don't go just because of Nawab Hussain Shah, but we go because Rupa and Sanatan used to live there. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, their residence was before in Ramakeli. And Lord Chaitanya had gone there and he met with Rupa and Sanatan at Ramakeli. So, Chankasi, he was the guru of the Nawab Hussain Shah. Just imagine how influential, powerful man he was. So it happened that devotees were starting to do Sankirtan. Lord Chaitanya had gone to Gaya and he'd been initiated. And he'd come back to Navadvip, come back to Mayapur, and he started Kirtan, Sankirtan. They were having a lot of kirtan. Of course, they were meeting in Srivas Angam initially. And it was in the Srivas Angam, they were having nocturnal kirtan every night. Mahaprabhu said, no need to sleep anymore. Right? No need to sleep anymore, Madam. No need to sleep. Just kirtan all night. Why we should waste time sleeping? Every day, how many hours we sleep? Just imagine, in the lifetime, if you sleep 12 hours a day, and you live 100 years, 50 years to spend in sleep. So Mahaprabhu said, we won't sleep anymore. We will just have kirtan every night. And they were having kirtan. But it disturbed people. Just like wherever we have a temple, when you have kirtan, you get complaints. Right? The neighbors don't like it. Oh, so much noise. Right? All over the world, we have the problem. Even here in India, we make a lot of noise. So, Srivas, they were having kirtan. The Chankazi came because they got complaints. And the Chankazi came, and the Chankazi broke the Madanga. Because in the time of the Chankazi, there was no Balaram Madanga. There was no fiberglass Madanga. There was no brass Madanga. There was only the clay Madanga. In Prabhupada's time, we only had clay Madangas. And Prabhupada, when they made the first fiberglass drum, Prabhupada played it. He said, not very good. Wasn't like the clay Madanga. Anyway, Chankazi came, they broke the Madanga, and they threatened. He said, Chankazi said to them, he said, what's happening here? He said, you Hindus, he said, for a long time, you never did your religious practice. Now you've become so devotee, now you're so religious. You're doing all of this kirtan, all of this chanting. What's happening? Who's influencing you? The Chankari said, if you continue, they'll take away all your property. They'll make you Muslims as well. So Chankasi knew the Hindu people are attached to being Hindu. They don't want to become Muslims. So he threatened them in that way. So they were very afraid. Because very easy thing to make somebody a Muslim. We know in Chaitanya Charitamrita it tells about Subhuti Rai. Subhuti Rai, he had a servant. And the servant at one point did something wrong, so Subhuti Rai caned it. So that servant grew up to be a very prominent man in society. And when his wife saw the mark from the cane, his wife asked him, what's this mark? And he said, yeah, I did something wrong and he caned me. And so wife said, you should take revenge on him. You have to do something. You have to get revenge on him. But the man said, no, I deserved it. But the wife said, no, you should do something. Then, oh, okay, I will make him a Muslim. So he took some water, threw it on him. He said, now you're a Muslim. It was such an easy thing to make someone a Muslim. Just throw some drops of water on him. So Subhuti Rai wondered, what can I do? I don't want to be a Muslim. And he went to the Brahmanas and he asked them, what can I do? They said, only thing you can do, you have to drink boiling ghee. Did you ever try drinking boiling ghee? It means you have to die. You die, you kill yourself. It's a suicide. So Subhuti Rai didn't want to do that. So he went to Mahaprabhu and he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what to do. And Mahaprabhu told him, you have to chant the holy name and serve the Vaishnavas. So Subhuti Rai, he did that very nicely. He served the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas would come from Bengal to Vrindavan and they would get sick, just like I'm sick. So Subhuti Rai would serve them. He'd give them rice and yoga. help them, because in Mathura they eat too many bread rotis. They eat bread roti very hot. So he gave them dahi and rice, cool the body. He was serving the Vaishnavas and he was chanting the holy name. Alright? So Chatkasi was threatening. He went to Shivasi's house, he broke the Madanga, they were all afraid. They all went to Mahaprabhu and said, Chatkasi said, no more Sankirtan. Lord Chaitanya said, what? I will kill them all. Call everyone. We're going to have Sankirtan. Call everyone. We will go in the evening. In the evening, after it gets a little too hot in the daytime. So in the evening, we'll have Sankirtan. Tell everyone, bring torches, and everyone should come. And they had a big Sankirtan. And they went all over Navadvip. And finally they came to the Chankasi's house. And they got to the Chankasi's house. The Chankasi was in the house hiding because he could hear the Sankirtan. He was afraid. He knew there's so many people. He was hiding in the house. So Mahaprabhu said, well, first of all, Chaitanya Charitamrita describes how they organized the Sankirtan. They had 3 parties. And then the head of the first party, who was leading the first party? Who knows? Who was leading the first party? Huh? Haridas. Haridas was leading the first. Why? Because he's a Muslim. And he's from a Muslim family. And they're going to the Chatkasi's house. So who should lead the party? Put Haridas in the front. He's a Muslim. So Haridas was leading the party, the first party. Advaita was the second party, and the third party was Nimai Pandit. And every party, each party, 4 madangas, 18 kartals, many people, all chanting and dancing. So very organized. Prabhupada also organized Rath-yatras. We used to see Prabhupada organize the Rath-yatra, like in New York. He organized all the vehicles, all the buses, all the Sankirtan. Just like they have a May Day parade. You know, if you go to Moscow on May Day, they have a parade, and all the army, all the military, they show their strength. So Prabhupada organized Rath-yatra to show the strength of our Krishna consciousness movement. Many vehicles, many buses, many devotees, all in the parade. So they all came to the Chankasi's house, and the Chankasi's hiding in the house. So Lord Chaitanya said, go inside, tell Chankasi to come. And so Chankasi came out and met Nimai Pandit. And Lord Chaitanya said, why are you hiding? And Chankasi said, well, you were all angry because they were shouting, kill the Kasi. He said, you were all so angry that I wanted you to calm down. I was waiting for you to calm down. Now I'm ready to meet you. And Chankasi said, you know, he said, Nilamba Chakravarti was my uncle. He is your paternal grandfather. So he said, Chankasi said to Nimai, you are like my nephew. I am like your uncle. In this way, Chankasi was trying to make nice relationship with Nimai Pandit. I thought Nimai Pandit was very nice. Yes, because Chankasi used to call Nilamba Chakravarti Kaka, your uncle, right? And he said he was to Lord Chaitanya, Chankazi was the father of his mother, Sachi, so grandfather. So this way Chankazi said, I am your uncle, you're my nephew. He said, if the uncle does something wrong, the nephew shouldn't get too angry with him. If I've done something wrong, no reason for you to get angry with me. You should be calm. Lord Chaitanya then spoke about cow killing with the Chankazi. He said, you know, the cow is our mother. She provides milk, which is so necessary. She provides milk. And the bull produces grains. So the bull is like the father. How can you kill the father and mother? How you can allow the killing? So Chankazi said, well, if you Hindus, you're also killing cows. You also have Vedic sacrifice. You perform Vedic yajna according to your scripture describes about cow killing. Lord Chaitanya, however, said, our scriptures prohibit the killing of cows in the Kali Yuga. In other ages, Brahmanas could recite mantras, and they would take an old cow and they would sacrifice it and revive it as a young cow. So he said that was good. You bring the old cow back as a young cow. He said that was good. That's a good thing. And the Brahmanas would do that to show their power of their mantras, that their mantras were very powerful. They could do these things. But he said in Kali Yuga, nobody can do it. Ashvamedha Kavalangyam Sanyasam Palapaichakam. The 5 acts are prohibited in the Kali Yuga. The cow sacrifice, the horse sacrifice, begetting a child in the womb of the brother's wife, offering of flesh to the forefathers, and taking sannyas are prohibited in the Kali Yuga. So Lord Chaitanya quoted this to the Chankazi. And then the Chankazi, he said, yes, he said, actually, there are many faults in our own scriptures. He said, I have to admit that people have not properly understood or properly translated the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada said there are 3 Yavana Shastra: the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. These 3 scriptures, they give some allowance for meat eating. They're often used for meat eaters. Don't do too much, I don't want too much. So for meat eaters, generally the Christian people, all meat eaters. Very rare somebody. There is one branch in Christian, Seventh-day Adventists, they're vegetarian. They follow the Old Testament. Actually, the Old Testament is more towards vegetarian. But generally, Christian will be meat eater, just like Muslim people eat meat, Christian. But there are also Muslims who are vegetarian. There was the one man, he teaches in the Calcutta University, somebody's teaching English literature. He's a Muslim, he came here, one time I met him. He had a book, the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita. And he said the Quran, Bhagavad Gita, so many things are just the same. So the message of the absolute truth is there in all the scriptures. But the problem is people don't understand, or they're not guided properly. They're not taught. So the Jankasi admitted this to Lord Chaitanya. He admitted that actually we're not supposed to kill the cow. We're not. Maybe there's some allowance for goats, but the cow is never allowed to be killed. The cow should be protected. And that's there even in China. Even in China in the past, they had a law to protect animals like the cow and the goat because they're so valuable. Nepal, if you kill a cow, you go to prison. But still people, they eat meat, they eat chicken, they eat all this. So Chankasi, he was admitting that our scriptures are not properly understood. So then, Lord Chaitanya was happy to hear that Chankasi admit this. And then he asked Chankasi, he said, now we're doing Sankirtan. He said, previously, he said, because you're the magistrate, you have the right to stop our activities. He said, previously, you'd stopped our Sankirtan, but now we're doing Sankirtan and you're not stopping us. What happened? Why you don't stop us now? And the Chankasi said, well, he said, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you in private. Chankasi said, these people, they're all my friends. You don't have to worry. So the Chankasi told Nimai Pandit about how one night, that very night after he broke the Madanga and threatened the devotees that he would make them Muslims, that very night the half-blind form appeared to him and sat on his chest and grabbed him by the throat and told him that you dare to break my Madanga, you dare to threaten my devotees. If you ever do anything like that again, I will rip you to shreds. He said, I will let you off this time, but if you ever do it again, and just to show, he drew his nails across the chest of the Chankasi. And the Chankasi opened his shirt, and you could see the big scratches down his chest from where the Chankasi had drawn his claws across the chest. So Lord Chaitanya smiled to hear all this. And so he requested the Chankasi. He said, and the Chankasi went on, he said, during the daytime, I sent my men to stop the Sankirtan, to stop the devotees from doing their kirtan. He said, but wherever they went, flames would come and burn their beards. You know, the Muslims, they don't shave, right? They all have the beards. They don't shave. So everywhere they went to try to stop the kirtan, flames would come and their beards would get burned and their skin would be all blisters. And it happened several times, different groups of the Chankasi soldiers would go and flames would come, burn their faces, and they would come back and say they could do nothing. So the Chankasi understood the power of the Sankirtan, that there was no way they could stop it. So Nimai Pandit requested the Chankasi, he said, I want your blessing that we can continue Sankirtan without trouble. And the Chankasi said, I bless that as long as my family, any descendants in my family, he said in the future, none of them will ever interfere with the Sankirtan movement. Chankasi gave this blessing. And Prabhupada said, even at the times of the partition, where there was so much tension between Hindu and Muslim, still nobody stopped the Sankirtan. It would go on without obstruction. Although so many Muslims are there in Navadvip and in Mayapur, they never stopped the Sankirtan. They kept that vow of the Chankasi. And of course the Chankasi Samadhi is there in Mayapur. And there are two trees grow there. One is the neem tree, symbol for Nimai, and the other is the champak tree, because champak was the nickname of the Chankasi. And the champak tree is very big, very many 500 years old. And there's a big neem tree also. The two trees are together, showing the friendship between the Chankasi and Nimai Pandit. And then they had Sankirtan, and the Chankasi joined the Sankirtan. He took part in the Sankirtan with all the devotees. And they went past the house of Kolkata Sridhar. And at that time, there was one iron pot there at the house of Sridhar. And this pot was an iron pot, it wasn't steel, just iron, all rusty. Kolkata Sridhar would use that pot to wash his feet before going into the house. Lord Chaitanya came by there, he took the pot, drank, and said, now I'm tasting the nectar. Kolkata Sridhar was horrified. He did not like that Lord Chaitanya would drink water from that pot. But to Nimai Pandit, this was something very special. He wanted to show honor for his devotee. So in this way, Lord Chaitanya performed many wonderful activities, encouraging his devotees to perform Sankirtan. And one night it happened that in the home of Srivas, while they were having Kirtan, the son of Srivas died. The son died. But Srivas told all the little, don't cry, don't make any noise, don't disturb Nimai. We're having Sankirtan. No one should disturb the Sankirtan. So the Kirtan went on all night, and then the next morning, Lord Chaitanya said, I can feel that something inauspicious has happened here in this house. What has happened? So at that time, Srivas explained that earlier in the night, my son was having a fever and he died. He's left the body. The Lord Chaitanya was shocked. He said, you did not tell me. We were having Kirtan the whole night. You did not inform me. And so they brought Lord Chaitanya to the boy. And Lord Chaitanya saw the boy laying there. He put his hand on his chest and requested him, why are you leaving this home? You've taken birth here. Why you would leave here? And the boy came back to life for some time and spoke to everyone that yes, it was my good fortune to take birth in this home and to be in the home of Srivas. He said, but now, according to my karma, my time in this place is finished and I really have to go some other place. So hearing the boy speak philosophy, everyone was pacified. And the body then lay down and the soul again left the body. All of these wonderful events took place during the childhood and the youth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So tomorrow is the auspicious day of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we want to observe that day in a very grand way. So we will have a big program. And generally also the devotees, we observe fasting until the moonrise. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared at moonrise. So we observe the fasting throughout the day, and then we will take prasadam after the moonrise. So tomorrow, of course, is also holy. So you have to be careful. If you're coming from outside, you have to be a little careful where you go and who's around, because it's that day when they throw color on everyone. Okay? Any question?
Muslims are trying to showcase the similarities between Quran and Bhagavad Gita to make us appreciate the Quran, and then they bring up the controversial topics of our culture to establish that Quran should be followed and not the Hindu Dharma. For example,
I'm not understanding you. Can you speak again? Hold the mic to your mouth.
Is this Hannah? Muslims are trying to showcase the similarities between Bhagavad Gita and Quran to make us appreciate that Quran is also bona fide. And then they try to bring up the controversial topics, for example, Brahma getting attracted to his daughter, or Vishnu Bhagavan compromising the chastity of Tulsi Maharani towards Shankachura. So they bring up these topics and they try to establish that Quran should be followed and not Hindu Dharma. So we don't have ourselves have clarity on this topic. So how should we guard our faith and those who are ignorant in this matter?
Well, we're not against other scriptures. Prabhupada said the absolute truth is there in all scriptures. Haribol. Swami Maharaj ki. The absolute truth is there in all the scriptures. So it's also, we said, but I'm not against it. People practice that. Yeah, okay, they can find fault with our scripture. They can say, Brahma did this, but Brahma gave up his body. He gave up the body. He didn't keep the same body, right? He gave up that body. And what was the other one? Sankashura.
Vishnu Bhagavan compromising the chastity of Tulsi Maharani to kill Shankachura.
Well, that's not in our scriptures. That's Puranic. We don't deal with all these Puranic things. So we're just trying to understand what is the purpose, trying to understand the absolute truth. Of course, we're not saying that everything's all the same, it's all one, but there are some similarities. The man who came here, he was saying that what's in the Bhagavad Gita is similar to what's in the Quran. So Bhagavad Gita is a primary book, but Bhagavad Gita goes on to higher. After Bhagavad Gita, you can go on. Bhagavad Gita brings you to the point to surrender to God, surrender to Krishna. But you go on from there. And it's not just only just surrender, because when Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy gave verses from the scripture about the ultimate goal of life, when Ramananda Roy said surrender, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, you have to go higher. It's not yet beautiful, because people may surrender, they have so many reasons why they surrender. They have some material motivations why they're surrendering. So surrender is not the ultimate goal. Lord Chaitanya wanted to stress pure devotion. What is pure devotion? That is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yane prayasambuddha pasyanamanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavati aparta stane stita shrutigatan tanvan manovir ye prayaso jitatitopi asitaishtrilokyam. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, also spoken by Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is saying, remain in whatever position you are in and hear about the Supreme Lord from pure devotees. Hear from those pure devotees how you can cultivate God consciousness. That is the higher. And Lord Chaitanya inherited it. Yes. He said, now let's discuss it. Let's go on from here, from this point. The important thing is hearing from the pure devotees. Okay.
But in this, I wanted to know how to stop them from using these points to make convert people.
Well, don't argue. Don't waste your time with these kind of people. It's not worth it. You're just wasting. We're not Lord Chaitanya that we could convert Muslims. You know, we can't imitate that kind of. Better just you have your religion, I have mine. But we respect your religion. You should respect mine.
We see that Mahaprabhu initiated Keshav Kashmiri. Later he joined in other sampradaya. Also there is another incident of one devotee, Vallabh Bhatta. He also joined other sampradaya. So another thing was like Mahaprabhu flooded whole South India, and many devotees became many people became devotees. But when you go to South India, we don't see any devotees of Mahaprabhu unless ISKCON had come. So how to understand that Mahaprabhu spread Krishna consciousness and they joined other movement and we don't see that the Mahaprabhu's followers which is should be like. So how to understand how to understand this?
Well, in South India, you see there are Sri Vaishnavas. The Sri Vaishnavas are there. So Lord Chaitanya spent time with the Sri Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada also quotes a lot of Ramanuja in our own purports. Often he's referring to Ramanujacharya. So Sri Vaishnavism Mahaprabhu discussed it when he stayed there, when he stayed in Sri Rangam. He discussed with the Bhagavata about Sri Vaishnavism, about the position of Lakshmi, that she's not on the level of the gopis, that she's the consort of the Lord, but she's not on the level of the gopis. The gopis are higher than the position of Lakshmi. So he explained all that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to bring the Sampradayas together, and he took the teachings from each of the Sampradayas and brought them into one. So that there were 2 points from each of the Sampradayas, and he brought them into Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So we see that in Mahaprabhu's teachings. And so the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are respected by the Sri Vaishnavas. They're respected by the followers of Ramanuja and Madhvacharya. So they're there in South India. There are Vaishnava families there. Some of the Vaishnavas, when Lord Chaitanya went to South India, some of them came. They came up to Vrindavan, like Gopal Bhatta. He came to Vrindavan, Radharaman Temple, Gopal Bhatta. He was from South India. When Lord Chaitanya was in Sri Rangam, he came up to live in Vrindavan. And Prabodhananda Saraswati, he was also from that family. He also came and lived in Vrindavan. So they wanted association. They didn't make a new temple down there. They came up to Vrindavan and they came to associate. And they wanted the association. You wanted that Ishvara to stay there. Lord Chaitanya brought the holy name. He gave the holy name. He got people to chant the holy name. That's there. Everybody in South India knows the holy name. And even before Lord Chaitanya, the hours were there. And Kulashekar, he had spoken, he said, Krishna Tvadiya Parapankaja Pamjara. In quoting, let me chant the name of Krishna. So that was even before Mahaprabhu went there. Anyway, now Mahaprabhu, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, holy names all over the world. All over the world, the name is being chanted. People are devotees. Okay? Alright, any other question?
Maharaj, can you specify why Srila Prabhupada has given the Brahminical initiations for this one devotees? What he meant that this should be the Brahminical standard. What is the standard that Prabhupada was looking for?
The standard for Brahman initiation was 4 regulated principles. Strictly following 4 regulated principles. That was the standard Prabhupada wanted. And of course, to strictly follow 4 regulated principles, you have to also chant the holy name. Without chanting the holy name, you won't be able to strictly follow 4 principles. Prabhupada gave Brahman initiation to show that Vaishnavas are more than Brahmins. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and our own Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they gave the Brahman initiation to show that actually, although by birth not Brahmin, but because because they're Vaishnavas, they're more than Brahmins. So they can also wear the Brahmin, they can also worship the deity and chant the Gayatri mantra, perform yajna. It's mentioned in Kapila Shiksha, there's a verse spoken by Devahuti, the Nama Deha Param. No, I don't remember now, but any of the verses that anybody who chants the holy name or who engages in any kind of devotional service, they immediately become qualified to perform a Vedic yajna, even though they're born in a low caste and a low position in society, that by contact with the Supreme Lord through devotional service, they become immediately qualified to do these things. Yeah. Brahminical qualification. People think birth, and they never do any devotional activities. And even they eat everything, they drink, they have all bad habits. They all know I'm Brahman. Kali Yuga Brahman. So one who is strictly following, then they can be Brahman. 4 principles. Of course, nowadays we have more qualification. Jayapataka Swami wants, anybody who wants second initiation, they have to have attended the Bhakti Shastri course. He says we don't want illiterate Brahmins. We want Brahmins who've studied the scripture. So the Bhakti Shastri course is a qualification for bringing one to the Brahminical platform in terms of Shastric study. A Brahmin should know scripture. Prabhupada never asked that, but nowadays we're asking that. You want to get Brahmin initiation, you have to also study scriptures. You have to complete that course. Study the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Alright, so we'll stop here. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki